Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. It's Wednesday, November 4th. I'm Stephanie Haney. I've got your top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you very much for choosing to be here to get filled in on what is impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. And what is impacting all of us today is the continuation of election 2020. And the Associated Press has just come out with a major projection for Democratic candidate Joe Biden, projecting the state of Wisconsin for Joe Biden. So what that means at this point is who the next president of the United States will be hinges on tight races in battleground states, as we knew it would. And right now, before we get into this, I just want to take this moment and ask everyone to take a collective deep breath, because it's going to take some time, and we knew that was going to happen. This is what we've been talking about for weeks, about the fact that this presidency would not be determined on election night, in part because of the record early voting, because of COVID-19 pandemic concerns. Okay, so now that we're all in that frame of mind, let's talk about what we know right now. The states to watch right now are Nevada, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, now that the Associated Press has just projected Joe Biden to be the winner of Wisconsin. Now, this is a race to 270 votes in the Electoral College. There's a total of 538 votes up for grabs, but to win the presidency, a candidate needs to get to 270 votes. So right now, based on the projections from the Associated Press, which is what we're going by here at 3 News, the Democratic candidate Joe Biden has 248 Electoral College votes, and President Donald Trump has 214 Electoral College votes. Now, looking at those states that we're watching right now, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Michigan, President Donald Trump is leading in Pennsylvania right now, and Joe Biden is leading in Nevada and Michigan. These are some shifts from what we saw late last night when the president came out and said that the voting counting should be stopped, which is not something that we do here in a democracy, by the way. The president coming out and making that statement yesterday was a false claim of victory, and there are legal votes that are still being cast in the state. Now, Trump this morning tweeted this: "They are finding Biden votes all over the place in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So bad for our country." Now, let me reiterate again to be very clear. These ballots are not being found in these states. These ballots were legally cast under state laws and legally could not be counted until now under those same state laws. This is the process. We have been talking about this, and we knew to expect it. Now, Joe Biden responding to that, tweeting, not responding directly to the president, but responding to his claims about votes being found and the legitimacy of the votes that are being counted right now, which we expected to be counted, that have been cast legally. Joe Biden tweeted today, "To make sure every vote is counted, we're setting up the largest election protection effort ever assembled, because Donald Trump doesn't get to decide the outcome of this election. The American people do." So what is being counted right now in these states are early votes. And it has been projected that the early vote was to be more in favor of the Democratic candidate. The Democratic candidate definitely made a push for people to get out and do early voting because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in these states, these early votes are being the last to be counted because of the way the process is set up in those particular states. Now, this will take time. Now, as a reminder, here in Ohio, the reason we didn't have a similar situation is because in Ohio, absentee ballots are able to be processed ahead of the election. What that means is they're able to be verified, making sure the signature matches. So they're not counted before the polls close on election day, but in Ohio, they were ready to go. They were sitting there, everything had been verified, everything had been confirmed, and all they had to do was run the ballots at this time. Well, that's not the case in these states where we're still waiting for these returns to come in. So now, taking a look at the states that we're looking at, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. If Joe Biden wins Michigan and Nevada, that's it. He gets to 270 Electoral College votes. Right now, President Donald Trump is still leading in Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania. These are all leads for now, though, by the way, and that goes for the leads in Michigan and Nevada for Joe Biden as well, because there are votes still to be counted. Particularly in Pennsylvania, by the way, the Secretary of State has said there's over 1 million votes left to be counted. But what this means for President Donald Trump is he will have to come back from that deficit in Michigan and Nevada, because if Joe Biden remains leading in Michigan and Nevada and takes those electoral college votes, that's it. He gets to 270 and he will be the next president of the United States. So even if President Donald Trump wins in Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, where he is currently leading, that does not get him to 270 electoral college votes. He will need either Nevada or Michigan in order to make that happen and win a second term as the president of the United States. Now, President Donald Trump's campaign has already said that it would ask for a recount in Wisconsin. Because the Democratic candidate Biden is leading in Wisconsin by 20,517 votes, the Secretary of State of Wisconsin has said that is within the 1% margin. So Trump's campaign could officially request a recount in Wisconsin, but that has to wait until the counties certify those votes. So that's not something that he can do today. That will still even be a couple of days at least until he could officially request a recount in Wisconsin, and that's something that will have to be done through the legal process. Now, while we're talking about numbers, let's talk about the COVID-19 numbers here in Ohio, which just came out from the Ohio Department of Health. We now have our second day with over 4,000 COVID-19 cases in the state of Ohio, and deaths are up from yesterday. There have been 4,071 new daily reported cases of COVID-19 today. That is down slightly, but yesterday was a smashing record for the state of Ohio with 4,229 new COVID-19 cases. If we look at the rate of positive tests that are coming back, our 7-day average is 7.2%. That's the highest that it's been since May, and the latest known daily figure is 8.9% for positive tests coming back from COVID-19. Well above that World Health Organization recommended threshold of 5%. And in the last 24 hours, there have been 55 new deaths related to COVID-19, up from 33 yesterday, and 186 new hospitalizations. The total number of people hospitalized is now 1,982. That's also up from yesterday. And a total of 502 of those people are being treated in the ICU for COVID-19 issues. Let's take a look at the U.S. and the global numbers now. These come from Johns Hopkins University. Just a slight change in the percentage of the U.S. cases when it comes to the global numbers. In the U.S. now, we are at 9,420,295 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 233,032 confirmed deaths related to COVID-19. That has ticked down just slightly. We have 4% of the global population, but we have 19.7% of the global cases of COVID-19 and 19.1% of the global deaths related to COVID-19. Globally, those numbers are 47,706,992 cases of COVID-19, and the total number of deaths is now at 1,218,208. Now, part of the reason for the massive turnout in early voting, particularly here in Ohio, was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in Ohio, there were 3.4 million early votes cast. That's also a major record in Ohio. Previously, there were 2 million early votes cast, and that was the record. Well, as of this morning, as of just after midnight last night, the state of Ohio was projected to be won by President Donald Trump with just over 53% of the vote, and Joe Biden with just about 45% of the vote, with all precincts reporting. Now, that's a lead of over 470,000 votes for Trump here in Ohio, and because the Secretary of State said there were just over 310,000 outstanding absentee and provisional ballots, not enough to make up that margin, so the projection for Ohio was called for President Donald Trump. Now, our Ohio Senator for the U.S., Sherrod Brown, said obviously he was hoping for something very different in Ohio. Sherrod Brown is a Democrat, but he says he's confident that once the votes are counted, Joe Biden is going to be the next president. Again, we just ran down that scenario that would lead to Biden winning the presidency. Sherrod Brown said he thinks all signs point to that. It's not either candidate, it's not the courts, it's not the Supreme Court who will declare a winner in this race. It is the voters. And just to reiterate here, the votes have been cast. We simply have to stay patient and wait for the results to come in by the processes that the states have put in place leading up to this election. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose did say that as of now, with the votes that are in, Ohio has broken a record for the number of total votes, the voter turnout here in Ohio, with 5,812,804 total votes from Ohioans. That breaks the all-time record that was set in 2008, which was 5,773,777. And also, those ballots that are still outstanding have not even been included in that total yet. So if those ballots do come in and are certified and are permissible and legally cast and such on and so forth, that'll put us over 6 million votes here in Ohio, shattering that record. But as of now, already record voter turnout here in Ohio. Now, if you want to have a little bit of fun, if you are capable of having a little bit of fun with the presidential election, I know this is a very emotionally charged time, very stressful time for lots of people. A lot of people feel very strongly about both candidates, but you can bet on who will be the presidential winner in the 2020 election. And as of right now, the betting odds are favoring the Democratic candidate Joe Biden. He has an 80.7% implied chance of winning. That was as of this morning with betting odds posted by our 3 News sports analyst. Also, the host of Chalk Talk, which is our sports betting podcast, Ben Axelrod. So you can check that out. President Donald Trump's sitting at 19.3% right now. Those odds have definitely been bouncing back and forth as the returns came in, but that's where they sat as of this morning. Now let's turn back to some election results here in Ohio. Let's talk about the Ohio House and the Ohio Senate. Republicans did retain a supermajority in both the Ohio House and the Senate in the 2020 election. That does give Republicans enough votes to override a governor's veto. That's very important because that's a discussion that has been being had when it comes to these COVID-19 and Ohio Department of Health orders that we've been seeing here in Ohio. So keep that in mind. Another thing that we need to keep a watch on, former Ohio House Speaker Larry Householder, the person who's been charged in that federal bribery scandal related to First Energy and that nuclear power bailout. It's very possible that he could win re-election, but it's not certain yet. He ran unopposed. There was no Democratic challenger on the ballot against Larry Householder. He was stripped of his title of Speaker of the House. That was voted by in the Ohio House, but did still run for re-election. Now, there were 4 write-in candidates, and those votes do still need to be tallied, so it's not perfectly clear at this moment, but signs do point to the fact that it is highly possible that Larry Householder will be reelected to the Ohio House. Now, let's take a look at the U.S. House of Representatives. It is projected that Democrats will continue to maintain control of the U.S. House of Representatives. There's been very little change in those numbers across the U.S. Here in Ohio, our House of Representatives, there has been no change. Every single incumbent was reelected, so Ohio will be sending, of its 16 representatives to the U.S. House, 12 Republicans and 4 Democrats for the next congressional session, which will kick off in January. Another big question about the election, will the Senate flip? It's not looking likely at this time. Here in Ohio, our U.S. Senators, Democrat Sherrod Brown and Republican Rob Portman, were not up for re-election, so no change there here in Ohio. Some incumbents who were able to hold on to their seats include Kentucky Senator Republican Mitch McConnell, who is currently the Senate Majority Leader. He beat Democrat Amy McGrath, and Republican Tommy Tuberville won election to the U.S. Senate in Alabama, beating the incumbent Democratic Senator Doug Jones. Now, there were some flipped seats in the Senate, but no net change at this point. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham was able to hold on over Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison, and in Arizona, Democratic challenger Mark Kelly was able to win over the incumbent Republican Senator Martha McSally. So right now, there are still 6 seats that are kind of being looked at in the U.S. Senate, and 47 are projected firmly for Republicans at this point, either no election or because of election results. 45 firmly for Democrats at this point, with 2 third-party candidates. You need 51 for a majority, so that puts 6 seats that are potentially in play. The Democrats would need all of them in order to flip the Senate and get a majority in the Senate, and that's just not looking likely at this point. Of course, we have that balance of power story up on WKYC.com and our WKYC app, so you can check that in real time for yourself if you're particularly interested in those 6 Senate races. A couple of things to note about around the U.S. Oregon has become the first state to legalize psychedelic mushrooms, and there were cannabis measures on the ballot in 5 states. Recreational marijuana has been legalized now in Arizona and New Jersey, and both recreational and medical use legalized in South Dakota. By the way, South Dakota, the first state to legalize both recreational and medical use of marijuana at the same time. Still looking at those marijuana questions in Montana and also Mississippi. Mississippi, it was medical marijuana on the ballot. Other important things to note: in Delaware, Democrat Sarah McBride will be the first openly transgender state senator in the country. When sworn in, she's projected to win. Now, there are several other transgender legislators around the country, but McBride will be the first state senator to be openly transgender. And in New York Democrats Mondaire Jones and Richie Torres will become the first openly gay black men to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. Bringing it back here to Ohio now, there were Ohio Supreme Court races on the ballot. There are currently 7 judges on the Supreme Court. It's been conservative for a long time, and there were 2 conservative judges up for re-election, so we are split on the change here in Ohio. Judge Judith French was beat by her challenger, Jennifer Brunner. So Jennifer Brunner will be taking over that seat from Judge Judith French, but Judge Sharon Kennedy won over her challenger, John O'Donnell. So Kennedy will retain that seat. This had implications, of course, for gun rights, city rights, unions, and redistricting here in Ohio as we await those 2020 census results, which will have an impact on what the districts will look like here in Ohio. One more thing to run down here for you is the school levy issues, which we have all broken down on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. I'll just tell you a couple of them right now. Parma City School District's levy failed. Parma City School District's buildings, by the way, are so old. The youngest one was built in 1968. They were hoping to renovate with that levy. However, the levy did not pass. The levy also did not pass for Waterloo Local School District. This was issue 28 on the ballot in Portage County, and Waterloo Schools has now seen 10 levies fail. So they are concerned about being able to focus on the programming of the students there. Superintendent Dr. Sean Brahman said that they've had to cut a lot of programs over the past 5 to 10 years. So things like choir and art and foreign language were things that they were hoping to get back, but that levy unfortunately did not pass for the Waterloo Local School District. One levy that did pass, though, issue 68 for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, that did pass, so that will cover the district's operating budget for the next 10 years. The district released a statement and said that they are very grateful for the voters of CMSD, who even in these difficult times are able to continue to support the children by approving operating levies that help maintain and improve their learning experience and prepare them for the future. So this is the approval of an existing levy and a $5 million increase, and they'll be able to build on efforts to guarantee a quality education for all students. That's the statement coming from CMSD. Now, if all of that election talk is too much for you, here's something that you can put on your calendar. Freeform's 25 Days of Christmas movie lineup is officially out, and it includes some of the classics. Yes, I'm talking about Home Alone, The Santa Claus, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, that starts on December 1st, but they also have their movie lineup listing out for right now, and some of those holiday movies are already on the lineup. So if you would like to watch Santa Claus, for example, you can watch that starting on Friday on Freeform. We have that full list on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. That's it for your 3 News Now update today for Wednesday, November 4th. I will see you next up on What's New with the Trending Stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment, and you can watch that live for free on the WKYC app. Thanks for choosing to be here to get filled in on what's impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. Stick with WKYC.com and our WKYC app for continuing coverages as we continue to watch those states in the race for the presidency here in election 2020 and everything else you need to know to fill you in on Northeast Ohio. Everyone stay safe, be well, and if nothing else, enjoy the beautiful weather that we are having today. I'm Stephanie Haney.